Hello and welcome to another episode of So Fly. It is the end of August, and we are back recording another episode. My name is Mitchy. We got Aldo, and he's
Hi.
cracking a veer. Nice. We got a sciencey one for you today
Yep.
because we have Andrew Orlando on to talk sciencey things about fish and cold water fisheries. So it's gonna be a science forward show where we talk about electrofishing and the importance of cold water fisheries from a science point of view. Maybe I'm curious to see what he says. But before we get into all of that, what do we got going on?
This comes out September 1st. If you're listening to September 1st or, we're close there, we just dropped a day tripping video a couple days ago about your day on the water with Jordan. Of course, our last episode was all about musky fishing, and this video is all about musky fishing too. So, I wasn't there, so it was nice to live throughout that day.
Mm-hmm.
Too bad that you didn't get any
Yeah, the
footage
video is just
of
basically me and I just losing fish, but it's fun. It's still fun, I guess. Because the cool thing about the video is you learn lots of stuff from Jordan. If you're interested in musky fishing, he talks about techniques and
it's super
flies
jam-packed
and
of really good info.
we see a bunch of fish. It's just that we suck at fishing, so we lose fish. But musky, pretty cool. I'd do it again, and I think I would be more successful next time because now I get a lot of the things I just didn't get because I'd never fly fished for musky before, like figure eights, for example.
Right.
I was like, why would the fish not be scared of my rod in the water?
Yeah, they're
The
not.
fish doesn't have good eyesight. It feels more with its lateral line. So it actually is a good thing if it feels more vibrations. And these things, like the first you'll see in the video, the first one that like ambushed my fly comes to the side of the boat and spends like I cut that clip in the video. Like there's a bit of me like doing figure eights and stuff. He was at the side of the boat, or she was at the side of the boat. Bigger fish tended to be the females. Another thing I learned. She's at the side of the boat for like 20 seconds. Like
so
chasing
wild.
the fly. Yeah. And it was like, I had a few good loops. As soon as my figure eight kind of sliced, it just left.
Yeah, it's funny. They're so finicky when if it doesn't turn, if the fly doesn't turn the corner the right way, if it like
legit
starts
was that,
not,
I was like, whoa,
patterning in the same way, they're like later.
Yeah.
And it's funny how they just kind of like vanish from whence they came.
Yeah. They just turned back into the color of the water. Like you see the fish and then it's just like, oh, it's just river, and it's probably right there, but yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, check it out if you're interested in musky, if you're interested in musky on the fly, and if you're interested in musky in rivers, because we fished a river, which is cool too. So
Yeah.
kind of fun.
I love it. I loved it.
Thanks, man. What else? What else we got?
Okay, well, I've got. I actually have started writing these down so I don't blow it as much. The first thing first, a little recap from that Grand River event that happened, and just as a small correction, it was Grand River Outfitting and Fly Shop, and Dan, who some of you might know as Live to Fish,
Right, Dan
on
yes.
Instagram, who's he's always coming to our events. And I'm sad that we were up north and missed this one because obviously you invited us, but they put on the event. I think I said the Friends of the Grand River put the event on, which is not exactly true. But anyway, it went to benefit a few different groups, including Friends of the Grand. So I think I was just kind of confused there. But despite a rainy day, they raised $1,400 for the Friends of the Grand, the Center Wellington Food Bank, and the Guelph Humane Society.
That's awesome.
Which I think was less than they were hoping, but in the face of a storm, they still did very well, which is great.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I mean, that's great. People did that.
Yeah, it's great. Looking over at Drip Outfitters has a ton.
I love Dan.
What?
I love Dan.
Dan?
Love to fish? Yeah.
Yeah.
He's such a nice guy. And we saw him at what was that show we were at in Toronto? The big fishing show. We saw him there. I can't remember what it's called. I'm so confused.
It's the Sportsman's Show.
There's like fish show, sportsman show. Maybe that's all there is. But I'm the only one confused. But anyway.
Yeah, maybe they should just amalgamate them.
Yeah.
ShamWow presents the Outdoors Show. Get your ShamWows.
Yeah.
looking at Drift Outfitters, September looks like it's a bunch of educational stuff, which is awesome. They actually have a learn to center pin class with Jordan.
Oh, cool.
But sticking to fly fishing, there's beginner fly tying lessons. There's single hand fly casting lessons, and an intro to fly fishing class that's actually kind of looks like it's happening at the same day at the Franklin Club, which
cool.
I mean, that's a great intro to fly fishing.
Catch a 60-pound trout your first time?
You're looking to
you can do it and then get another one.
Exactly.
Jordan Pocket is teaching a pin. Yeah. Nice, Jordan.
Jordan pinner class. Yeah.
Nice. That's pretty cool. I mean, I honestly have no idea how to pin. Do you know how to pin?
I did it once, and it's obviously,
I have no clue.
It's not. It's the better version of what we do with an indicator for steelhead.
It's
like
super
about
effective.
1,000,000%. But it's an interesting way to cast. Like the cast is kind of interesting. You're like lobbing it. The reels, of course, are like some of them are so beautifully made. Like, from brands like Islander and some other really cool center pin brands. But obviously, I'm going to mention Islander because it's Canadian.
Islanders are great.
I've never done it. I've never really done it in earnest. Maybe we'll just turn into a center pinning show.
Pinning with Pocket, maybe he needs a podcast.
In the Pocket with Jordan pinning.
Is that the name of the class? Because if not, we need to talk to Rob.
Seriously.
In the Pocket.
Pocket.
That's a great name for a pinning class. Oh, there you go.
Right? There you go. So there's lots of educational stuff if you're looking at Drift Outfitters. The Nottawasaga Steelheaders Association, on September 4th and 5th, they're doing restoration work on Willow Creek, which I'm assuming is a tributary headwater kind of deal. The Nottawasaga Steelheaders are awesome. We met them years ago at
Patagonia?
The Patagonia store. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what prompted me to look them up today, because I was just like looking for calendar things, and I was just like, let's go check in on these guys. And they've got September 4th and 5th coming up. So if you're listening to this on the 1st, it's happening kind of quick, but you can sign up and go check it out. Check out their website. You can just search Nottawasaga Steelheaders in Google. But they look like they're most active on Facebook. So if you want to follow them on Facebook, they have all their events there. OttawaFlyFishers.ca, they don't have any events posted, but that's okay. And then our buddy who we went up north with, Michael Del Vecchio, let me know that
Michael,
the Forest City Fly Club in London, Ontario, they have the regular meetings on the first Wednesday of every month. So if you want to go join them, you can do that. Because your first, like, if you're interested, first Wednesday of the month. So if you're not a member, you can go to one and see what it's all about and see if you want to join. And if, the club's full of people like Michael. So, I mean, why wouldn't you want it?
Yeah.
Then September 4th, they have a tie-along with her favorite bass flies. And then the third Wednesday of every month is just a tying session. Yeah. And that'll be the September 18th.
They do a lot of cool stuff for City. Like Mike was talking about little tying competitions that they put on, and they're actually pretty awesome. And get some pretty cool. Like, go check them out. Forest City seems like a
they have a website. It's fcflyclub.ca, and they have their events posted and everything.
There you go. Definitely worth checking out.
And then lastly, to segue into our show, September 14th, Ontario Streams has a volunteer day at Cold Creek Conservation Area, and I think it's going to be like some stream rehab, cleanup, and some learning about Cold Creek. So that's cool. So you can check out Ontario Streams with the show.
Are there red ants at Cold Creek?
I hope not,
because there tend to be a lot of red ants where we like to go trout fishing in Southern Ontario. So, prepare, because there might be red ants at that day.
Just wear your waders and a long sleeve.
Be
prepared.
Man, I've gotten bit on like my eyelids, like my ears, like everywhere. It's the worst. But whatever.
Yeah, fire ants are. That's why I can't take Frankie to the credit.
Actually, like, it's crazy.
She'll just get destroyed.
Shout out to Vinny, man. Vinny, I don't know if I've told the story on the show before. Fishing with Vinny, who's a great angler here in Southern Ontario. You might have met him at some of the Sotoses. We're fishing the credit, and he's like laying in the grass, and we're just chatting. I'm fishing a pool, he's chatting, laying in the grass, and I look over at Vinny, and he is covered in like 2 billion red ants. I'm just like, Vinny. He's like, whatever. Like, he
So
was more ant
hardcore.
than man at that point. Yeah, it was
1
wild.
million ants.
He was like, dude, imagine laying down like there, like you
No.
get covered in them. But Vinny, he's been fishing there forever. He doesn't care. It was funny, man.
That rocks.
Yeah, Vinny's cool. Well, okay, great. I mean, yeah,
There's
let's
lots
go
going
and,
on. I
yeah,
think like, now that when summer's winding down and we're into fall, I can't believe I'm saying that, but definitely going to see more events
yeah,
popping up because obviously our
getting to the
seasons
shouldy
are
seasons.
getting to, yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's get sciencey. Let's turn on our science. We'll talk to Andrew.
Let's turn on our science.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about little streams. We're gonna talk about fish assessments and cool stuff like that. And what
I learned a
fish
lot. I really did.
do. Yeah, I know, and I'm excited to because I wasn't at that day. Aldo went on a day with Andrew to do some electrofishing and learn about one river here in Southern Ontario. I wasn't there. I'm excited to learn about it, and I have some questions for him as well. And some pertinent things like what is important about cold water fisheries or cold water ecosystems, because a lot of them are under threat right now. And curious to hear what it comes from a scientist, because for me, it's a very emotional thing. Just like because they're awesome. Why would you want to put a parking lot on one?
Yeah.
But like, there's reasons that are like, scientific. That, I mean, there definitely are. These rivers need help. So let's talk about that. Okay, let's get into that. Andrew Orlando after these words. Andrew Orlando received his Bachelor's of Science Zoology from the University of Guelph in 2020, focusing most of his attention on the behavior and physiology of freshwater fish. After graduating, he frequently volunteered with different community hatcheries, working to stock several species of salmonids in local watersheds. These experiences eventually led him to joining Ontario Streams as a habitat technician, first in 2022, then again in 2023, before eventually advancing to project technician. After becoming a project biologist during the summer of 24, Andrew continues to strive towards protecting, rehabilitating, and improving Ontario's freshwater ecosystems, following his passion for freshwater fisheries and environments. But today he's on SoFly. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, guys. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. I know we've been chatting for a while, but this show lines up very nicely with a recent outing. Aldo?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yeah. We're recording this on August 28th. It comes out September 1st. So depending on when people are actually listening to it, yesterday, August 27th, myself, Demisha from Brown Girl Outdoor World, and Josh, aka Josh on the Fly, we joined Andrew and his team for a. Is it a sampling day? Is that the official term?
Yeah, sampling day, survey. We kind of interchangeable.
Yeah, so basically we were there to they were electrofishing. So they this particular cold water habitat, Ontario Streams is I'll let Andrew talk about this, but like Cole's notes, very interested in native species, very interested in brook trout and Atlantic salmon restoration. So we were there looking for those two fish, but that's not all we found. Obviously, we found a lot of different types of fish, and we're there categorizing them and weighing them and measuring them and just
keeping an eye on things,
keeping an eye on things and learning just how many fish we didn't catch.
That's cool, and I can't wait to talk about that because that's the part that story you did, Aldo, on SoFly, like that said that I was like, it's a really good point. But okay, before we get into all of that fun stuff, Andrew, where the heck you calling from, and how did you get into fishing?
So I'm calling in from Barrie right now. I'm living out here for a bit. I was living in Guelph for a while, but how I got into fishing, I mean, like a lot of people, my dad taught myself and my brother how to fish from a pretty young age. That was just spin fishing mostly for bass.
Of course.
My dad's not a fly fisher himself, but he showed
Because
us
you
the
you
ropes.
grew up like around like the Southern Ontario area.
Yep, absolutely.
Right. Okay.
Born in Richmond Hill, and
Nice.
always in Southern Ontario all my life.
Yeah.
But yeah, from there, eventually got more interested in fishing near the end of university. I started kind of picking it up more myself, and that was around the time that I also picked up fly fishing. So it was about maybe 5 years ago, something like that.
Yep.
And yeah, since then it's just been go go go, which it's been great.
Do you remember what your first fish on a fly was? Was it a bass?
Yeah, actually, my first fish on the fly was actually a bass. At the time, I wasn't driving,
Yeah.
so living in Guelph, there wasn't a whole lot of trout opportunity within biking range. That's what I was doing right off the bat. So we had the Speed River runs right through town,
Yep.
Right.
and yeah, there's bass in there, there's pike in there, there's carp in there.
Nice.
So yeah, my first fly rod was a 9 foot 8 weight, and cut my teeth on
Hell
warm
yeah.
water species actually.
Right on. That's funny coming like being in Southern Ontario because I always think like trout and stuff like that. But of course, there's tons of great warm water stuff, And good old Ontario boys. Look at us, three of us. It's fun
Look at
chatting
the
to
three of
someone else
us.
from Ontario. We talk so often with people from all over the place, but it's fun to just chat about this wonderful province. How'd you get into like science? Like you went to school for some sciencey things. How'd that all come to be?
So it all kind of started when I was a kid as well.
Yep.
Always a lot outdoors with our dad and our mom, and going camping, going hiking, seeing different places like that. And as I grew up, my first, as a kid, a lot of the first job you want to be. For me, that was a zookeeper. Because at the time, I thought that was like the pinnacle of working with animals.
Nice.
And as I got a little bit older, I realized that maybe I was interested in other stuff. So I was always sort of interested in zoology as a teenager. Originally, I was really keen on getting into animal behavior, but things sort of changed as I went through university. Kind of picked up this really intense love for fishing and fish in general. So near the end of my school, sort of shifted my focus towards that sort of stuff. And yeah, from there, it was just getting involved in every way I could. The community hatcheries were a big part of getting into the field that I'm into now.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was just, a gradual journey, I'd say, throughout most of my life.
Yeah, that was probably the next question we were going to ask, but you kind of answered it already, which was like, oh, did the fishing inspire the career, or vice versa, or
Yeah, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, I would say. They both kind of feed into each other, and I think one of the most interesting parts of my job is that I'm able to kind of bring it back and tie it into my angling. We were talking a little bit yesterday about how, especially electrofishing and streams, is a really, really cool insight into how these fish actually utilize this habitat or different habitat types in a river. And we've detected or caught salmonids out of places in a river that you wouldn't really think of, or at least that's how it was for me when I first started getting into this stuff. So yeah, it was kind of a feedback loop. Like everything fed into each other and just made me more and more and more enthusiastic about it.
Which hatchery, like community hatcheries, were you like working with? When you graduated, how does that work? The community hatchery thing. I don't know anything really
It's
about that.
it's a cool program. So the community hatchery program is actually run by Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters.
Okay.
So it's something they do basically to help out community groups that are trying to run fish hatcheries to help out with any sort of stocking that's going on in the province. Naturally, the Ministry of Natural Resources typically is the organization that's allotting these eggs to all these different hatcheries. So they work together with OFAH and these hatcheries, but the ones I worked with 2 hatcheries, one of which was run by the Credit River Anglers Association. Good group of people. Typically do a lot of really nice work on the lower end of the Credit River.
Yeah.
So I volunteered at that hatchery for about a year, I believe, and then the other one I did was the Brant Rod and Gun Club, a little bit southwest of Guelph by about an hour. They had another small hatchery where each one had different species. The Brant hatchery had only brown trout, and those fish were stocked out in the Grand River watershed. And the Credit River Angler Association hatchery had a sort of an assortment. They had brown trout, they had rainbows. They would occasionally get some species of salmon in. While I was there, we actually had a short stint where we had some Atlantic salmon. But I know historically they had done Chinook salmon hatchery work.
Right. So these little hatcheries are just kind of all over the province, and they're like community groups basically like running them?
Yeah, absolutely. We're actually partnered with another community hatchery right out of the Islington Sportsman Club. That's up in Caledon. It's run by a gentleman named Warren, who is probably Ontario Stream's #1 volunteer. He's been volunteering awesome. With Ontario Streams for probably close to 20 years.
Yeah. Wow.
And been super active. Yeah, he's been absolutely wonderful. He coordinates the hatchery out of that sportsman club, and he's exclusively raising brook trout and Atlantic salmon. So
okay, and then basically like they raise these fish, and then the MNR and OFA decide like where to stock them.
So no, the stocking locations are actually up to the hatcheries themselves.
What?
However, there's a whole permitting process behind.
Right. Okay. So someone
fish.
has. Right.
Yeah, it is reviewed where
like I can't just open a hatchery in my backyard and start stocking like the pond over there with like fish.
You can't do that.
I was like, how community is this?
It's just like, where do I want to catch rainbows?
I mean, technically, you can stock if you had a private pond, on your own property, but in terms of public waters, you definitely need a permit to stock public waters. And there's a whole reporting and permitting process, but yeah, it's all run in coordination with all these different groups, and it's been very, very cool to be a part of that. And
because one of the groups is Ontario Streams.
Well, yeah, we don't run a hatchery ourselves,
no,
but with the help of Islington Sportsman Club, some of the eggs that we request from the ministry are raised there, as well as with another sort of program we have where we actually incubate Atlantic salmon eggs in stream.
That's cool. In stream, right? I've seen that actually on an old history show, and we'll get into this later because the whole fish hatchery thing in science is really interesting. Okay, so what's Ontario Streams then?
What's Ontario Streams? Great question. Ontario Streams is a charitable organization. We're an environmental charity. So we are an organization that focuses on the conservation and rehabilitation of streams, rivers, and wetlands. We've been around since 1995. We're actually coming up on our 30-year anniversary next year.
Oh, true.
Yeah. Super excited.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
So
I feel a party coming on.
Maybe where the planning process has started. I can say that at the very least. But yeah, for years we've been an organization focused on rehabilitation of these areas, promoting stewardship in the community. Education and community action are a big part of our organization's mission. We very much believe that teaching people about these areas and getting them involved, getting them interested and engaged is very likely one of the #1 ways that we can protect these habitats. And without the community's interest, it's a very uphill battle. But
right, of course,
totally. Yeah, we see it all the time. with like trying to get attention on things like the mega quarry and like the the Credit River and all that
absolutely.
Stuff. So how do you help with Ontario Streams as a community person, as boots on the ground, I mean, I think like a lot of people always hear these like, come out and help things, but I wonder like what are all the ways in which people can help? I mean, this obviously segues into the day that you guys just had.
Yeah. I mean, right off the bat, there are two big ways. One is donating your time, and the other would be donating resources. So, you can on Ontario Streams as a charity, we do accept direct donations, and you do get a little bit of a tax credit from that.
Yeah, for sure.
But even more than that, we are very frequently looking for volunteers to help us out with various tasks. A big thing that we do is plant native trees and shrubs, and for that we very much rely on the wonderful work that our volunteers do for us. We do have public events, which we'll definitely talk about later today. But we also run corporate stewardship programs. So we've had a lot of success with companies coming out, and for them it's a great day out of the office or a team building exercise, that sort of thing. Come out, plant a bunch of trees and shrubs, or we also do litter pickup, sometimes in-stream volunteer days as well. All sorts of different things to get people out and engaged and really interacting with their local environments.
It's cool. Yeah, it's really neat. Just get the wheels turning because it's like such an important job, to get people inspired to see like what they even have out there, like in their backyard. So it's like, yeah. Okay, so you guys had a day on the water recently, and
That's right.
was meant to be all about going to survey a local river here that like why that river?
Why that river? So the tributary that we were on is a smaller headwater tributary of the Humber River, and this habitat in specific, it is historical brook trout habitat, and is also very close to the headwater source. So what that means is this stream is very, very cool for a good portion of the year, which is very, very important, vital for that sort of habitat. So this site in particular, we have been going through the process of reintroducing Atlantic salmon over the last 6 or 7 years, roughly, at this site anyway, specifically. And the sort of habitat that is available there or is present there is perfect for that sort of thing. Atlantic salmon, very much like brook trout, are a cool water species, or a cold water species, I should say. There is a difference, that are extremely sensitive to water quality. They need that cold, clean water pretty much year round to be able to survive, fulfill their life cycle, grow up to the point where they're ready to move down to Lake Ontario. So, the site that we're working on, or that we were at yesterday, has still some urban influences. So we do some rehabilitation projects there.
And that's like tree planting and like just trying to fix the literal river after people have intervened and messed it up, basically.
Absolutely. Yeah. We've done a decent amount of tree planting there. We've also installed several in-stream structures in that stretch of tributary. These in-stream structures are focused on a number of things. The big one is preventing erosion. Eroding banks has been, increasingly an issue in our area in the GTA, largely due to development. So the more development we have, the big issue is impermeable surfaces. So what that means is, concrete, asphalt, hard surfaces where rainfall and other sources of water can't actually seep back into the earth. They just run off somewhere, the closest downhill place. And typically that's our rivers and streams. So what happens is, instead of this water naturally going through the earth, going into our sort of water table and coming back into rivers through what's called a hyperheric zone, it all comes rushing in super fast, picking up all sorts of weird substances along the way. So that's a lot of sediment, or especially in the winter, a lot of salt, different chemicals, just stuff that's laying around. And that's all going into our river with such water speed that we like to use an analogy. It's almost like a pressure washer on the bank.
Yeah.
So what you're having is this erosion that's occurring at an alarming rate, really. Um, erosion in and of itself is a natural process, and it's very normal, and it should happen on a river. More so, our issue is the pace at which these banks are eroding. You're losing meters of banks within
which
years.
Means, like, what does that mean? Like, why is erosion bad?
So what this does, Mitch, is it introduces a lot of fine sediment into the water column. So as anglers, we know turbid water, really turbid water, typically isn't too great for feeding fish. It's just, they're not used to it. Imagine you walking through a sandstorm, kind of a similar sort of idea. So reduces visibility. That's a big one. Erosion, can also, in a roundabout way, contribute to warming waters. When you have banks eroding, these rivers are widening.
No brush, no tree coverage. Yeah,
taking away that brush, all that stuff. So you're losing canopy cover. Shade, definitely helps keep the water cool. And by widening the river, you're slowing down the water. By slowing down the water, it's giving it more of an opportunity to heat up.
Right.
So it's a bunch of different factors really coming together, and that's a lot of what we see across the industry. There's no single thing responsible for or contributing to any of these
apart
situations.
From humans, I suppose, right?
Yeah, I mean, in the grand scheme of things,
humans are just messing with everything. Crazy.
Absolutely, but everything's always a bigger picture. Everything's a part of this big connected web. So all these things kind of work together to sort of degrade habitat over time. Yeah. So these structures are great at capturing fine sediment, working to regrade a bank.
Yeah.
But it also it's taking that sediment out of the water column. It's also providing habitat. These things are built out of Christmas trees mostly. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Really? Like just recycled Christmas trees?
Yep, absolutely. We the vast majority of our structures are made out of Christmas trees that are actually donated to us from Simcoe County. In the winter we have a few truckloads of trees delivered to us that we'll use throughout the field season. That's
pretty awesome.
Yeah,
super awesome.
It's great. Yeah.
And also, like, where we met Andrew and his team in the morning, at what should we call it, HQ?
Sure, yeah.
At Ontario Streams HQ. They've got the trucks and all the equipment and everything there, but they also have a greenhouse where they raise some of the plants and whatnot that they reintroduced to the stream bank, which I thought was really cool too.
Yeah. We have that little greenhouse back there. We do our best to sort of grow our own stock to a certain degree. With the amount of trees and shrubs that we are able to plant each year, we do end up purchasing a good amount of our trees, but
for sure,
that little greenhouse back there is, it's a nice little piece to help out with what we do, that way we can kind of be a little bit more choosy with what species that we want to grow in there and stuff like that. I think this year, by the end of this fall, we're just coming up on our fall tree planting season. We do the majority of our tree planting in the spring and the fall. We're going to be just over 13,000 trees and shrubs planted this year.
That's wicked.
Yeah.
On that trib, or like a different, or just like a bunch?
Just in general, and across all of our sites. So
because you guys, how do you go about getting sites? I mean, we don't have to spend a ton of time on this. I'm just really curious about Ontario Streams. Like, what's your boundary?
So we work from as far west as day to day anyway, as far west as Brampton. And as far east as Whitby. So most of our work is within the GTA.
Which makes sense, I suppose, because that is where they all need the help, right?
Yeah, exactly. But we work on 5 major watersheds within the GTA. So that would be the Credit River watershed, the Humber River, the Don River, the Rouge River, and the Lind Creek watershed. Lind
Cool.
Creek is out east in Whitby.
Cool. Yeah.
That's very
Wow.
cool.
I mean, there's so many places, like even outside of Ottawa. Like I remember in Stittsville where I grew up, like Pool Creek run right through town, and there used to be brook trout in it. And then, of course, people dumped chlorine in there, and like there's no trees anymore. And I was crushed as a kid. I'm like, you're telling me there's brook trout a bike away from my house, you know? So it's like, man, we gotta get an Ontario Streams chapter over there. That'd be that place needs some love.
Yeah, it's crazy to see some of the old information out there, especially, I mean, in on the topic of brook trout, and this has been a topic on top of a lot of our minds recently, especially with what's going on surrounding the West Credit. But if you see some historical distribution maps that are out there, it's pretty staggering to see how close brook trout streams used to be. Now, mind you, I will say you would be surprised. There are a few tributaries that are in places that you wouldn't expect brook trout to be there, but they are.
Yeah,
that's cool.
So yeah, it's.
And do they need help, or
really surprised?
Are they thriving, or could they use a little help too?
I mean, in these unique situations that are closer to urban areas, it's typically fairly small, secluded populations that have generally been cut off from other populations. Population fragmentation is a really big issue with brook trout nowadays.
Right. Yeah.
Just these populations have been cut off even now for a good amount of time, where you're having these weird, even almost genetically distinct populations. But
wow, that's so sad.
It's connectivity is a big thing that we like to talk about, especially with our Atlantic salmon work. Atlantic salmon, being a migratory species, absolutely needs access to these headwater habitats. That access isn't really there on a lot of our tributaries due to dams and other sorts of barriers. There's a lot of really great efforts that have gone on over the years to sort of mitigate these barriers through fish ladders or notching weirs or dams, stuff like that. But there's still a lot of work to be done if we really want to truly reconnect a lot of our rivers.
And there's so many solutions that feel sort of like Band-Aidy, like that stuff, where it's sort of like,
blow up these dams.
Like, oh, here's a fish ladder. I've seen some of these fish ladders that are just like crazy. Like, to get up one of those things, like you got to be a hell of a fish. Like, the water's I'm like, come on, like, not making it easy.
The Michael Phelps of fish.
Yeah,
it's like I wouldn't knock any of these projects. They're there for good reasons. And it's better in most cases than nothing, right?
Sure, yeah.
But a lot of these situations are sort of designed around jumping species for the most part. And of which there's other fish species out there that are just as important.
That don't, right.
That aren't jumpers. Notably, the American eel is a species that has been very severely impacted in Ontario. American eel used to migrate from Lake Ontario all the way up to Algonquin Park once upon a time. But
that's so wild.
What would you say before we get into and maybe this is too big a question, you need to think about it, and we'll get into next, I think maybe just like talk about the day that you guys had on the water. But what would you say to people that are like, brook trout, there's lots of those up north. Let's just put parking lots everywhere and don't worry about it down here and just call it a day. Stop worrying about this stuff. Why bother?
That's
That's the mayor of Aaron. You're talking to the mayor of Aaron, right?
Well, a lot of people have that opinion. They're like,
I know.
I want a house, and there's trout up north. It's like, but
no,
and maybe the answer is as simple as just like, why would you want to kill something like beautiful? But I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a complex answer, and I think that answer is probably different for a lot of people. And I there, of course, the argument stands that you need space for humans. Absolutely, no one's disputing that. But I mean, for me anyway, I can speak personally on this.
Yeah.
I there's some sort of inexplicable intrinsic value behind native fish for me. It's it's you read and you hear all these stories and all these different things about how things used to be.
Yeah.
And for me personally anyway, I can't help but feel that there's no reason why we can't have things at least resemble that original state. And I think, as people in Canada, I think we, to a certain degree, owe it to our country and our natural environment, and also, the peoples that originally inhabited here, the type of respect that these species deserve. And I think, a lot of that gets lost with some people, just looking at them as a fish, or just as a thing, or as a resource.
Yeah.
I
hate that.
It's
a resource.
There's a lot more there. I believe personally anyway, and being able to share that with people, I think, is one of my favorite things about the job, and about what we've been doing yesterday and today, and just the events that we've been joining you guys on this year. It's always great to talk to people and try to share that really deep passion and respect for these things. And but yeah, it's a tough question, Mitch.
Well, it's a great answer. I think
a great answer.
Kind of like why you do what you do with Ontario Streams, right? And I feel you.
Thanks.
I feel you.
That's my truth, I guess.
Yeah.
For lack of a better term.
There's tons of economic reasons why we should. There's tons of environmental reasons why we should. There's tons of just of course. But I love your answer. I think it's great.
It's a multifaceted thing for sure.
Yeah, like we don't have to build communities the way we build them now, which is just as much sprawl as possible with the exact same fucking like McDonald's, Scotiabank, Shoppers Drug Mart
thing,
strip mall thing, and it's you don't have to photocopy those communities over and over and over again. They're very uncreative, shall we say? Like there could potentially be ways of having our cake and eating it too, in terms of like we can have housing and have brook trout. I think I'd like to live in a world where people think both are possible.
Exactly.
Like it's not that I feel like there has to be a better answer than
give like
15,000 McDonald's.
Humans need a bit more credit than that. It's like, well, this is where houses go and that's where trout go. It's like, well, why can't you do a bit of? We can figure this out. We've got smart people here.
And even as people. Like, we've always historically strived to do better. Yeah, let's continue to do better.
Speaking of doing better, then, what did you guys do better on your day? Maybe that's not a good segue.
Fly fish.
Yeah, you know what?
Right.
I was actually shocked. I couldn't stop. Saying throughout all of yesterday that. I was expecting a lot of fish on the rod. And
for sure.
Fish
were caught though.
Fish were caught.
Let's set up the day here. Okay. So Andrew invites us to join his team on a survey day, sampling day, and which is great. But before we got to the electrofishing, Andrew's like, well, bring the rods, we're all gonna fish. And I was like, okay. And Josh, Demisha, and Andrew were strung up the rods, and the creek was, or tributary. Sorry, the tributary was
nice and cool.
It was 57 degrees. It was cold. Like this was like a very brush covered, beautiful small stream. Tons of groundwater bubbling up from the. You could see that coming into the stream. Like very very cold. Like even we strapped on waders because of the fire ants,
Oh
and
yeah,
it's poison ivy,
old fire
etc.
ants. Yeah,
Um, and but you could feel it through the waders too. It was nice, crisp, and cold. And we temped it at 57, and that was that was even at 9:30, 10 o'clock. I mean, it didn't change its temperature throughout the day. It was cold all day,
that's amazing.
even at
Oh yeah.
noon. And so we got to fishing, and we're at the first little plunge pool, and Josh's second drift, like, gets smoked. Like, he was fishing a stimulator, and he gets a really nice rise, and doesn't like, this is like
The cover,
it was just
of the
it was
stream.
bow
Oh
and
yeah.
arrow casts. It
Yeah.
was like
Super
we were
tight,
like
right.
we were super tight, so we didn't really get a good
Yeah.
hook set and lost the fish. And then we
Yeah.
explored the stream, but then we ended up catching a few fish, and it was beautiful. It was great. We walked around. It was super fun.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
That's awesome.
it was a really cool day. We managed into some fish. We eventually made our way
Rainbows,
onto,
Mitch.
yep,
Oh,
rainbows.
awesome. Love rainbows.
Made our way onto some small streamers, and we got a few browns to like flash on them. I think that one brown that Josh got to reveal itself, I'm pretty sure we actually came back and caught it electrofishing
Oh,
later.
so these are all native fish.
So
Well,
Some native, some
naturalized.
stocked.
Naturalized.
yes,
Yeah.
so
Native is
We're-
only brook trout's the only native.
Yes,
And
but
yes.
been there for a long time, and you haven't
Yes.
stocked them recently, and you're just sort of coaxing them along year after year.
Absolutely. That site in particular, we've only been stocking Atlantic salmon there in recent years. The browns in there are an artifact of when the province used to stock the Humber River pretty healthily with brown trout. And the rainbows are hard to say. Could
Okay.
be coming up from Lake Ontario. In some cases, we kind of call them pond escapees. Some people in the Humber River watershed, they have their private ponds. They may choose to stock them with trout. It's not always brook trout. These fish escape. So there is a resident population of rainbow trout in certain sections of the Humber.
Jailbreakers.
Yeah. Through
Interesting.
one way
I
or
mean,
another, there is fish there.
do they have an effect on the brookies?
Yes. Yes, I would say
Competing
undoubtedly.
for food, I guess, right?
The brown trout are a little bit more, have a little bit more of an effect.
Yeah.
Seeing as they're so piscivorous.
Yeah.
However, rainbow trout still would compete for resources quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Especially rainbow trout are pretty well known to have a pretty fast metabolism. So
right.
yeah, a lot of the times you'll
Constantly.
see resident rainbows sitting in faster water compared to browns and brook trout. That's because they can consume food and still kind of get a net gain out of it, while expending a little bit more energy for it. Whereas brown trout are, the lazy trout. They just sit in one spot and wait for some food to come to them, and anything.
So
that
this
fits
is
in their
not
mouth, right?
This is not a stocked section of water. And have you seen it over time? Like, how long has Ontario Streams been working on this one little slice of heaven?
So we've been working there for about
Really
7 or 8 years now.
Okay, 7 or 8 years. And when you guys started, was the water like it was? Like, was it 56 and, or is this the result of a lot of, work and stuff?
So no, it was always typically pretty good in terms of temperature. So we were actually originally brought onto the property to help out the property owners with some erosion that was occurring on their stream, and they were pretty close to losing some of their roads down there.
Wow.
So yeah, we came in, installed some structures, and just the partnership continued from there.
Oh, cool.
So in all of our time down there, we've only stocked Atlantic salmon. Now I say this is historic brook trout population. We've never actually detected a brook trout in that stretch, which is to us a pretty odd thing considering how pristine the habitat is. It's the perfect place you would expect to see a brook trout. But a large part of that is likely due to the presence of brown trout.
Okay, so that
Okay.
is the hypotheses would be brown.
Yes. Very similar situation you see on the Credit River, which people might be more familiar with. Um, there's that dam in Bellefontaine. It is there for a reason. It acts as a species partition. So those brook trout upstream of that dam are largely protected from brown trout because of
Yeah.
that dam. And for anyone who's ever fished the Forks,
Mhm.
you seldom see a brook trout down there. They are there, but definitely not as abundant as the rainbows and the browns.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a place that you've been working with and on for a long time, and so you went
Yeah.
there to do a fish survey to just collect data and understand. I guess in this case it was just fish numbers.
Yeah. So there's different methods and different types of surveys you can do depending on your question. So in our case, we electrofish this property every year because of the Atlantic salmon that we stock there.
Okay.
So as a part of our Atlantic salmon program, whenever we stock an area, we'll come back later in the year, electrofish it, and essentially what this does is helps us educate our stocking program and what decisions we make.
Right.
So whether we want to continue to stock a certain location or not, basically. So we're looking for the fish that we stocked the same year, and ideally fish that we stocked in previous years. This tells us that they're surviving and they're growing up, and ideally they get to the age where they move out of the system.
How do y'all decide which fish to stock? Like, how'd you go Atlantics here? Is it just like funsies, or is it
well,
like is there a more scientific reason?
I mean, the habitat requirement for Atlantic salmon is very similar to that of brook trout. So we are sort of limited in that sense to
certain places
where we can stock. Yeah, we look for sites very much like this that have great groundwater inputs, not a lot of urban impacts, and we try to find sites that don't have as many brown trout. Brown trout exert that sort of pressure on Atlantic salmon as much as they do brook trout.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very much, if they fit in a brown trout's mouth, then they're getting snacked on. So yeah, we've lost probably the majority of the Atlantic salmon that we've lost over the years. Of course, there's no way to say for sure, but I suspect brown trout.
I've heard about the Atlantic like salmon stocking thing since I was like pretty young. Is it generally doing well, successful? What and is it? I guess I just don't totally understand why Atlantic salmon.
I mean, why I guess comes back to what we talked about earlier is what's the value of a native species,
right?
So Atlantic salmon,
there,
they're a native species to Lake Ontario, and that it was kind of this program was originally started because we wanted to be able to reintroduce this species or provide a way to reintroduce this species. So it was a decision mostly by the province that they wanted to sort of start this program because they saw the opportunity. Now, where we are a part of the Lake Ontario Bring Back the Salmon program, with a bunch of other organizations, the province, OFAH, a bunch of other great people in there. Ontario Power actually contributes quite a bit to that program as well.
Yeah.
And it's the actual reasoning I couldn't quite tell you myself.
Yeah, that's what I know. Like I think it's kind of like everybody. It's kind of just something we've done for a long time, and it doesn't not make sense.
You know what?
Like, why?
to address your question, Mitch, how it's going. In recent years, we've had a lot of successes.
Nice.
Especially last fall, we actually saw the highest number of returning adults to our
cool.
North Shore tributaries than we've ever seen in recent history.
That's interesting.
I mean, that's got to just be a good indicator of just like environment,
stream health,
things doing well. Yeah, extreme health, things like that, right?
Yeah. So at this point, we're seeing a lot of these adults sort of in the mouths of these tributaries, and some of them are reported moving in. But the interesting part is, we don't currently have a well-established monitoring program for these fish down at the lake. This year, there's some interesting stuff going on because of the numbers we saw last year. There's some organizations, people are hoping to maybe get a little bit more monitoring going on this fall to see if we can capture more numbers, because we really do believe there are fish ready to come up to these tributaries, and that's really the first step.
Is the hope with these Atlantic salmon like they just, is the ultimate dream that they go back to the ocean, or are you just really hoping that they're just living their lives in Lake Ontario and then coming back to spawn?
Mm-hmm. So there is like the Lake Ontario population of Atlantic salmon actually has always existed. So these fish aren't coming to and from the ocean. Way back when, we're talking last ice age, the St. Lawrence Seaway was sort of messed with and established at the same time, but it resulted in a population of Atlantic salmon being locked into Lake Ontario.
Gotcha.
So this population just adjusted to living in only freshwater, and
so crazy.
Yeah, I know. That's one of the things.
They're like, I guess we just live here now, guys.
I guess this is home.
Yeah, that's just
and physically changed to do it. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, they're like, okay, we can deal with
all
this.
the lakes. It's pretty big.
Yeah, which
they chose well, I guess.
A part of it, I think, is a testament to the fish.
Right.
I mean, not only are they known for their incredible jumping abilities. The Latin name is very much translates to jumping fish.
Salmo salar.
Yeah. Yes. But these fish are adaptable. They're capable of surviving in these environments, and being able to adjust that ability to reproduce from going from needing salt water to no longer needing salt water from a scientific standpoint is pretty impressive.
Totally.
So it's I think it really speaks to these fish, and again, we've had a lot of successes. I've been really personally happy with the program. I'm looking forward to future developments surrounding monitoring and what happens to the program, and especially communications on it, because I know in the angling world it's kind of a there's two factions right now. The people who are all for it and the people who are very much against it. It's a very interesting.
We've heard definitely vocal arguments on both sides.
On both sides,
for sure. Yeah, it is a hot topic right now. I get it.
Well, that's why it's funny. Like, who decides? And should we have a more informed decision than just like anglers who are against it or for it? You know what I mean? Like, it's like maybe it's something. Some.
I guess it comes down to your value system, right? Like, do you value native species or not?
Absolutely. And a part of it comes onto organizations like Ontario Streams to be able to communicate these things to the public. I think that's a big part of it, and I think all the partner organizations trying to bring back these fish have been doing a great job, and that'll continue to evolve, and hopefully people are more and more receptive as time goes on.
Yeah.
Hot question: if it wasn't Atlantics, what would you want to stock? What kind of stocking program would you want to do?
I want to stock.
If they're like, hey, you know what? Like, OPG's like, you know what? That Atlantic thing, let's do something else. What do you want to do?
I mean, like, are you talking province-wide, Mitch? Or like, are we talking like...
Let's say Southern Ontario. Like, kind of something to replace the Atlantics program.
Something to replace the Atlantic program.
Yeah.
Damn.
Once upon a time... there was migratory brook trout, Yeah, they would go to
That's
Lake
pretty
Ontario
cool.
and come back up.
Just swinging for brookies.
Yeah, I've heard whispers of the odd migratory brook trout still encountered nowadays.
That's
But
crazy.
I've never seen a picture of one.
Right.
I've never
Would
seen
that
an
be like the
actual
same
record.
kind of strain-ish
Like in
as
the
those like Lake Superior coasters
Superior?
or something like that?
Potentially, yeah. So
Or something in that vein. I know obviously
yeah,
that's not a very there's no
Something
scientific way
hardcore.
to.
yeah. So
Sounds like something
I know
hardcore.
one of the brook trout strains that are used are the Lake Nipigon
Yeah.
strain
Mm-hmm,
fish.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's one of the popular strains used
It's so
for brook
crazy.
trout.
So cool.
Yeah, I know.
Because
I
we
mean,
went to
Great
a hatchery
Lakes.
way up north. Remember that?
It's
Like in
just took the
Elk
words out of
Lake.
my
And,
mouth.
yeah, we met some Nipigon brookies and some
Yeah,
Aurora
And
trout too.
Lakers.
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
and
crazy.
they're mean, dude. Like
Yeah,
they're like,
yeah. That's
what do you want? You know?
Yeah,
the
they were like
big reason.
smoking. They were
Whoa.
like, "What do you
Yeah.
want? Don't look at me."
So cool.
That's the big
Those
reason
fish.
they were chosen. They're like,
Yeah.
these are some
Robust
mean,
fish. Yeah, for sure.
some mean customers, and
Yeah.
hopefully, they take. But
That's cool.
could you even imagine? And I think that's the same thing with even Atlantics. Like,
Yeah.
people spend how much money to go out east to get an opportunity to encounter these fish when potentially we could have that right here.
Right here,
Totally.
yeah.
What's so wrong with that?
My favorite thing about it, whether it's Atlantic salmon or coast, like these, lake run brookies or whatever the heck native fish you decide to try to like restore. What I like is the output is river restoration and trying to make the environment better. So, insert whatever fish you want, but at the end of the day, like the work being done is good no matter what the fish species, So that's cool.
Very, very true.
It's been very cool to see the industry nowadays has very much shifted to a sort of habitat first perspective. The old views used to be, just stock the snot out of these fish, and if we stock enough fish, something is going to stick.
Right.
Where
they stock them in like boiling bath water. They're like, it'll work.
It's gonna work. Just put a million more. It's like,
it's it didn't quite work out.
Habitat
birds are like, yes.
Yeah.
So nowadays it's thinking about the habitat and it's shifted more towards that and trying to make sure
that's awesome.
These fish have somewhere to go even if we are the ones stocking them back in.
Yeah, very cool.
So to quickly summarize the rest of our day, because I know we're
electrofishing.
Yeah, we're all over the place here, guys.
No, we're not all over the place. It's a good conversation.
This is very cool. That's very
so that electrofishing day we had Atlantic salmon in mind, but on a funny note, watching Josh suit up, because you're suiting up in rubber waders and these these shoulder length rubber gloves, obviously for safety. There's an electric current in the water.
Is the current strong enough to like
kill you?
No.
Yep.
What?
Dude.
That's
I didn't know that, by the way.
That's so hardcore.
It's strong enough to kill you. Thankfully, there's never been a recorded incident in North America. So we always say during our safety talk, we like to keep it that way.
Yeah.
Good safety talk, by the way. So we had a safety. We had lunch. We fished. We had lunch. We had a safety briefing. Learned how the equipment worked. I hope I'm not trying to make fun of anybody, but the backpack and the what is it called? The
anode.
The anode. You do end up sort of looking like a Ghostbuster.
Sure.
Yeah. And but it's cool because a gentleman Doug that was with us. He had the anode in the backpack, and then Andrew as team member Kat and Josh were behind with the nets. So it kind of works. Honestly, it worked a lot. It took a lot of. When I showed up, I was like, how are these fish not dying? How are these fish not harmed? That was always my thought. I've never seen electrofishing before, but I would kind of like draw a parallel between Frankie, my dog's e-collar, and the level of current these fish are getting. They're not even really stunned. In fact, they're actually still really hard to net. as we found out, like Josh was like trying to net a brown and was like swimming all over the place. So it's like it's almost like it's not so much that they get stunned; it's more they get let's say moved off their lie, and all of a sudden you can see them. And obviously the stream where we're in was quite small, and so when they come off the lie, scoop them up in the net, put them into the bucket. The bucket gets full. There's a bit of a, I don't know, I guess you could call it like a home base kind of like the area where data is being collected. And they had a team member on the shore there, grab the bucket. Did you refresh me of her name?
Eli.
So Eli would grab the full bucket, bring the bucket back to the weighing station, if you will, the data collection area, and there are more buckets with aerators in them. And so the fish get sorted by, type, suckers, trout, dace, and sculpins, et cetera. And then Eli started, weighing and measuring all the fish and then putting them back pretty much immediately. So the whole process was like pretty demystified for me, and like
that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we're witnessing a best practice scenario here, but like, it was.
Yeah,
the fish really weren't ever out of the water, to be honest. Some version of water.
Net to aerator, data collected, back to river, basically.
Yep, pretty much. And it was really cool seeing like the fish were where you expect them to be, like the browns that we were seeing. But it's just that we fished over them, and it was annoying that they were actually there. You're like, I know there's got to be a fish there. It's like, oh, there was.
That's so cool. Yeah, that's so cool because it's so often when we're fishing, we're like, you know what? I did that perfectly. There's no fish there, but like there probably is, right? Is what you guys learned.
Yeah. I've electrofishing especially has been a really cool part of the job that I've been able to like bring back into my river fishing in general. And totally. It's in a lot of cases it's like, okay, there's fish there. They're just, you're not doing something right. But in other cases, it's been interesting to be doing these surveys and finding fish in places that I wouldn't have thought of.
Right.
So in that respect, it's been very eye-opening to the places that you might be able to find these fish sort of tucked away.
It was fun, man. I had a blast. I really like, honestly, like, thank you for, inviting us and letting us fish. But like, I think we're all pretty excited for the electrofishing to start, to be honest. And when it did, it was like, I mean, Josh was like, man, he was hilarious. He was like,
he was into it.
He was very into it.
He was all into it. Yeah, he was great. He took it like a champ.
He's going to give the fly rod. We're going to see him down at the river with like an electro, like an anode. I'm fishing. Yeah, it's like, oh my God, Josh.
One huge takeaway was, oh my God, there's so many sculpins. I mean, I know there's a lot of sculpins in our streams here, but it's wild how many we pulled out.
Now, that stream is a little bit sculpin heavy compared to some of our other places, but you see a pretty big population of any sort of bait fish. Another big one we see is Western black-nosed dace. For all you fly tyers out there, look up an image of a Western even just black-nosed dace. That's, if you're hawking a streamer, that's what you want.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah,
they're pretty prolific.
That's cool.
Yeah,
it was super cool. We had so much fun, and Eli is so careful with the fish, and they were saying like, oh, it's funny because Eli doesn't fish, but they were saying that we get to, it's great because this is the one time we get to actually physically interact with these things and see them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and which was a funny thought because I'm like, oh, we're netting and releasing fish all the time when you're fishing. Yeah. Well, hopefully all the time. Maybe not all the time. Some of the time.
Generally.
But that was such an interesting perspective. I was like, oh yeah, no, of course this would be probably so much work data collecting and interpreting that data, and of course planting trees and all the other stuff you guys do, that this is the one time you get to actually see the thing you're saving.
Yeah. It's those electrofishing days are probably some of my personal favorite days.
Yeah.
On the job. There's a lot of cool stuff that we get to do, but that's definitely one of the more the days I really get pumped up for personally, being a big fish guy. But
love it.
But yeah, just being able to interact, and you know what, I think being able to interact, especially with a lot of these species that aren't sport species.
Yeah.
For me, anyway, when I was first sort of getting into the industry, it was really eye-opening to see just the amount of diversity and the amount of things that are there. And I mean, although, like you said, the sculpin at that site specifically, that site was probably one of the first sites that I actually electrofished. And I was blown away, mind absolutely blown, going like, these things are everywhere.
Well, I think we got 87 fish, if I'm remembering correctly.
Across all species, yeah.
Across all species,
something that too, and
87 fish in basically 100-meter stretch of water.
So
and
cool.
then
I would say probably less, probably closer to 50. I think that site
50 meter, yeah. So in a 50-meter stretch,
small
we pulled.
stream.
Wow, that's awesome. That's
and
crazy.
there were some missed fish in those nets.
Oh,
Josh.
Not all Josh.
Come on, Josh.
No, let's blame the noob. Blame the noob. Awesome. But let's just call it 100 fish in a 50-meter stretch, and you guys were walking the stream for maybe 20 minutes.
Something and then
that. And I would say half of them, or just under half, were sculpins.
Yeah,
that's
cool.
Yeah, probably.
It's pretty wild. It's a huge food source for trouties.
Love it.
It was fun. Okay. Anyway, thank you so much. It was such a blast.
You know what? It was our pleasure, guys. It was so much fun. We had a great day.
You guys care so much for those fish, and the way you have the system set up to keep them all happy and
we do our best,
healthy, and it was fun watching them. You put them back in the river, and they just were kind of just sitting by those rocks, and then they were like, "I'm out of here."
You got a great video of that.
That was cool.
All the way.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely want to hear more about how people can get involved, what the next kind of dates are. But before we get into that, why don't we do some Mitchy's Fishies 5?
Yes, let's do it.
It is that time of the show. Mitchy's Fishies 5. Same 5 questions we ask every guest on the show. We're going to ask you them now. And the first one we're going to ask you is, what is your favorite fish and why?
Okay. You know what? So as you guys said, being a listener of the podcast, these were the questions I was most not worried about, but but had to put some thought into.
Awesome.
My favorite fish and why? I think I would have to separate as an angler and as a conservationist, kind of, for me anyway. Mostly because I've never angled for Atlantic salmon, but Atlantic salmon are probably, from a conservation standpoint, my favorite fish. We were talking about earlier, I think they're just amazing animals. What they're able to do, not only the Lake Ontario population, but the population of Atlantic salmon that migrate from the ocean. Just outstanding ability to reproduce and continue their genetics, and just all the things, the jumping, the migrations, being able to locate and migrate, even direct themselves. Some of this stuff isn't even understood yet in science. And it's just such a
crazy
creature.
That's so cool.
As an angler, it would be a pretty close tie between brown trout and smallmouth bass.
Nice.
I find recently I've been doing a lot of smallmouth fishing. Here, Southern Ontario, if you want to fish all year, then you better learn to fish for something other than trout, because you're not fishing for trout at the beginning of August.
No.
I've definitely gained a pretty big appreciation for those smallies, especially living in Barrie. Lake Simcoe is on my doorstep. So it's I just last weekend actually I was able to tangle with a 4 3/4 pound smallmouth.
Right on.
So
I love it.
You can't hate that.
We love smallies.
Well, as a man dedicating his life to fish, I would expect you to have more than one answer to that question. That's pretty cool. Very cool. Okay, so if you could fish anywhere in the world right now, where would you go and why? Number 2, anywhere in the world.
I think it changes all the time, kind of. But more recently, I've been really, really dying to experience Golden Dorado. I mean, how could you not?
For real,
How could you not? I think
but,
it's safe to say now that the Golden Dorado has surpassed the GT in the answers of this question.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Most people used to be like Seychelles GTs for sure. Now it's Dorado. Like,
I was talking about it today. I was talking about it with someone today.
I've never fished the salt before either.
Yeah.
And I went through a little bit of a stint of being like super, super into carp fishing on the fly. So I think being able to fish for bonefish would be pretty friggin' sweet. But
that would be cool too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I promise you it's sweet.
That's pretty fun.
I'll take your word for it also.
It is kind of like the coolest thing ever. You know,
bonefish. I know. I was actually just thinking. I was like, what would my answers be to these questions now after all these years? And as much as an obsession I've had saltwater wise of tarpon, great respect for that fish and its mysterious migratory nature as well.
For sure.
There is just nothing like walking a bonefish flat.
Yeah,
with the sun starting to dip down and the tail's starting to glow. It's like, oh my god,
nothing like it. But Dorado though, maybe.
But Dorado, right? Dorado,
Golden Dorado.
This
might give them a run for their money.
Like the violence of the takes, and you're just throwing, huge streamers on 10 weights and just just crazy.
They're such cool looking things too. Like they're the coolest looking thing, man. Okay, number 3 is what is one of your best or favorite fishing memories from over the years?
Over the years, you know what? It's maybe not one single time, or a bunch of times pop out in my head. But I think one of the coolest experiences for myself, anyway, having our dad teach myself and my brother how to fish when we were kids. Going on, nowadays, every year we have this trip in the fall where we just do us, and we've been doing it this will be our 4th year now, and it's a blast. It's so much fun, man.
Where do you guys go?
We go to the Moon River. So not too far, honestly. It's the lower Moon River, the portion of the river that's connected to Georgian Bay. So we're typically pretty high in the system, a pretty good distance from Georgian Bay, but great walleye fishing, great crappie fishing, great bass fishing. We've seen a bunch of musky out of there. We've seen big pike. We've seen big channel catfish. We've heard some guys talk about catching one year. One guy told us he caught a salmon. This is kilometers from the bay, like far. Some people have talked about catching sturgeon, big system connected to Georgian Bay. So it's really every single fish under the sun, right? But yeah, that trip is probably some of my fondest memories in recent history. Anyway,
it's awesome. Nothing beats that kind of stuff. Also, Moon River, such a cool name for a river. Moon River,
water than a mile,
right? I mean,
just up there.
Okay, number 4 is why do you fly fish? Why do you keep?
Why do I fly fish? This one is this one's probably in tune with what a lot of people have answered to this question. Is I think there's something unique about fly fishing, and I do a lot of gear fishing as well. A lot of kayak fishing with spinning rods and bait casters. And there's just something very, very unique and feels very different about fly fishing. I can't help but feel that connectedness to the river, to the environment, especially with all of the things that I've been lucky enough to learn in my past few years in this industry. Being able to get out in these environments, kind of look around and really appreciate everything that's around me and everything that all comes together, and it's and there's no better way to do it than with a fly rod in your hand, in my opinion. And there's just something, very, very magical almost about hitting the river in the wee hours of the morning. It's just, you can't explain.
No, for real. I mean, that indescribable thing is, makes tons of sense. I think it's also just like people's connection to nature. Remember that lady we were talking to in Indiana who's like, why do I want to protect it? Because it's fun. That's it. It's like, I've always loved that answer because it's just like, it's just fun. Like there's really not much more to it.
Is it okay that I say that? It's fun. I love that. She was so good.
A great answer.
It was a great answer. She's like,
that's
more people good enough reason,
more people need to have that connection to things.
Yeah.
Okay, number 5. Last of Mitchy's Fishies 5 is, what fly pattern represents you best and why? If you were a fly, what would you be?
You know what? I'm maybe a little bit weird on this one.
I like that.
I'm sure someone's name's attached to it, and I'm just not remembering it, or whatever the case may be. But I'm going to go with a headstand carp fly.
A headstand carp fly.
Yeah. So it's like this
Lance
Egan's. Eyes. Yeah, Lance Egan's. That was one of the patterns I used to tie. So like said, when I used to live in Guelph, getting into fly fishing, it was all warm water species. And eventually, after I caught a few bass, maybe got into a few pike, I had heard all these things about carp fishing and how it's so difficult, and it's like stalking fish, and it's like the freshwater bonefish and all that. So I very very quickly took the challenge and decided that I would whip up as many of these things in different variations that I could, because those fish, or those carp specifically on the Speed River, were some of the pickiest friggin' fish that I have ever encountered in my life.
That's awesome. That's a really cool fly. I love that.
It's basically that's a bonefish fly.
It's like, I feel like it's versatile. Like, I caught bass on that fly as well, but it's different. And that's, I feel like that's me kind of, so most days.
I like that. That's a great answer. And we've never had it on the show. So there you go.
There you go. One for I got my own page in the coffee table book.
Yes, absolutely, brother.
Yes. We got to make that thing.
Still waiting for that, guys. Yeah.
Oh, we're going to make it.
Yeah, we're all...
But we got to keep getting, now you're in the book. Now, you know what I mean?
At 200, when we get to 200 episodes, we'll make the book.
Yes.
All right.
Agreed.
Everybody who heard that is now got to hold you guys to it.
Yeah, so if you're listening, you really want to be in the book, hurry up. We're getting there. I think next year we'll hit that. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on the show. Honestly, it was awesome to get to chat to you, and thank you for what you do with Ontario Streams. I think it's awesome. It's obviously super important, and if more people had your attitude, then the world would be a wonderful place.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Like I said, this year doing stuff with SoFly and the whole gang has been a lot of fun. We've talked to a lot of people. We've had some of you guys come out to our volunteer events.
Yeah.
And it's been great. So
when is the next one? When can people get involved next? Like when is the next?
Great segue.
Yeah. Speaking of volunteer events,
I gotta come out. I missed the last one. I gotta get out there.
So our next one is actually on September 14th, I believe.
Okay.
Just double check that date. Yes.
Yep.
September 14th.
It is that. Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's a Saturday. Nice.
At Cold Creek Conservation Area in Bolton. It's going to be a great day. We're going to be planting some native tree and shrub species in a nice little area where over the summer our team had worked pretty hard to remove a bunch of European buckthorn, which is an invasive species of shrub.
Get out of here.
Yeah. So we every year we chip away a little bit more and replant a bunch of beautiful native species. So it's good. Yeah, it's going to be a really fun day. It's a nice little tributary to the Humber River, so you're helping out those trout and those salmon, and just our waters in general.
Okay, awesome. Well, there we go. September 14th. And
September
how else
14th.
can people, get involved? Where can they find Ontario Stream stuff and all that jazz?
So you can check us out at our website. So it's ontariostreams.on.ca. You can find us on social media at Ontario Streams, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. Give us a follow. We always shout out our upcoming volunteer events on our socials, and just our general sort of day-to-day stuff we try to keep people updated on, and share as much as we can about all the cool stuff that we encounter and we do. So yeah, I would say you can also, on our website, you can sign up to our newsletter. We have a monthly newsletter. Again, just, hearing more about what we're doing and upcoming volunteer opportunities, stuff like that.
Sweet. Okay, great. Well, amazing. Thank you again for coming on the show, and we'll talk about that 30th birthday party for Ontario Streams. I think we got to
Yeah,
throw a rager.
For sure. That'll be so fun.
Amazing. All right. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you, guys.
And that's another episode there for you, another interview. Of course, now this is the part of the show where we do a little bit of a wrap up, a little bit of an outro. Anyway, that was cool. I hope that you enjoyed it and got something out of it. Andrew's a super nice guy. Obviously, you guys had a great day out on the water, and he helped us out at Soto's too. Him and
he's a good
else from Ontario
cat.
Streams. Very nice. Yes,
and they were at the Good Lot event as well.
Yep. Very nice people.
Yep.
Their stoke is high.
Very.
They're cool to have in the community.
Yep.
And yeah, thanks for coming on the show, Andrew.
Yeah, we had such a fun day. Like, I think Josh, Demisha, and I, we all left being like, wow. I mean, we knew it was going to be fun just because it's fun hanging out.
Yeah, and you're outside.
Josh, Demisha, we're all friends. But you're outside. But it was just like, honestly, the electrofishing was more fun than the fishing.
Yeah.
It was just like, it was zany.
It's neat to be able to see just how many fish are in a river, because sometimes you have no idea. And sometimes it's like, I don't know if there's many fish in here, but I think often the answer is no, there's fish in there.
Well, there's fish in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, man, sculpins, dude.
Yeah.
So many sculpins.
Do you think the trout are just smoking them like crazy?
For sure.
Have to be, right? Why wouldn't they be?
Well, browns especially.
Yeah, of course.
And
the daces as well. There's a lot of dace you saw.
Oh my God, I know. Yeah,
which is the Mickey fin.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the black nose dace.
Yeah. So there's a reason those patterns are so famous.
Yes, of course.
Of course.
Was the black nose dace? I'm gonna look this up right now.
Yeah.
The black nose dace fly.
Yeah. BND.
I wonder where it was invented.
That is a question of grandeur. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I want to say it was invented in New York.
Yeah, probably.
Because it's an old fly. And fly fishing kind of came from there.
1947, Art Flick's Streamside Guide listed only one bucktail, the black-nosed dace.
Okay. Art Flick. So it was an Art Flick's book.
Yep.
Which is when did that come out?
Art Flick and the black-nosed dace.
Did Art Flick make that pattern? I mean, now we're just going down a bit of a fly history thing here. But yeah, I mean, Art Flick is a Catskill guy.
Yep.
He's a legendary angler.
Uh-huh.
So if he did make that pattern, then my guess of
definitely.
New York was pretty solid.
Actually, it was pretty much spot on, actually. Wow, nice one, bud.
Hey, slammed.
Nice. Yeah, that's
cool.
such a classic, the Black Nose Days.
Yeah. Art Flick. What a cool name, eh? So that's yeah. That's some stuff. I got to check out some more of his books, get my hands on them.
Yeah, buddy.
Interesting history there, So it's coming to an end here, summertime. It's almost fall, which means that we've got some fall fishing to do, as does everyone listening to this. Well, unless you're in the salt or something, but up here, about to get cold, which is awesome because it's been hot and I like the cold.
Very hot.
And I'm excited for steelhead.
Yeah, I'm excited for 1 month of resident trout. Just
yeah, for real. Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
To use to use a euphemism that the youth are using. Let's go.
Let's go.
Hey, let's go, everybody. Let us go. Let us go. Let me go. Yeah, I'm stoked, dude. Like I don't think I really brown trout fished at all this year here or anywhere. I don't think I've caught a brown trout this year.
So fast, man. It's kind of wild. But yeah, we got to get out and do some trout fishing for sure before we get into the fall stuff.
Yeah,
but
fucked.
What's been up in our world? I mean, we just got back from a couple weeks up north in northern Ontario. Really,
yeah, that rocked.
Yeah, to Old Post Lodge, Brunswick Lake Lodge.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have content, all that stuff coming out soon, in the next several months, kind of thing. Because winter's coming. We gotta save some stuff for when we all really want to go fishing.
Oh yeah,
but it was a fun trip. Michael, like we said earlier, Del Vecchio took us to Old Post, and me and you slammed a bunch of pike and a bunch of walleye.
You killed it, dude.
Yeah, there's nice fish in there. Obviously.
Oh yeah,
it's a giant northern lake in the north, like near Pickle Lake, Ontario. Which, if you know anything about Ontario, used to be the furthest you could drive in the province, and now you can go even north of that because they build roads up there because there's really nothing else to do.
And there's
mines, roads,
and there's mines to get to, buddy.
And there's mines to get to, and Earth to explode. So we got to get roads to those places. But it's very expansive, amazing, wild place, obviously. And yeah, we experienced some pretty nice pike. No 40s, but hey, they're in there. And,
pretty close, man.
Pretty close. Like 38 was my best fish.
It was a beefy one too.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fun. And Brunswick Lake, you had a blast, right? You were with
it's like the most fun.
David, very good fly fishing. Idis, Nick, obviously, Salmographer on Instagram.
Yep.
And you guys were catching a lot of little pike just because conditions were basically limiting you guys to just like a ton of little missiles, as you.
Yeah, I think we like probably boated like 500 fish, and I think I caught my PB walleye. On the
got a huge walleye. On the fly. I thought that was at Old Post.
Oh yeah, it was at Old Post. Never mind.
But wait, did you catch your PB on the fly at Brunswick and then beat it at Old Post?
Yes, yeah.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah, I got a 20-incher at Brunswick on the fly, and then I got a 24-inch walleye on the fly at Old Post.
It's a big fish, man.
My all-time best walleye was with was in Algoma country as well,
right
near Spanish.
It's like 10 pounds, right?
It was 15 pounds.
That's a huge walleye.
And that was the first time we took our buddy Matt C ice fishing.
Yeah, that's right.
And it was like insane.
Yeah, that's a big fish. I mean, there's people outside of this are like, I got a 40-pounder, but it's like, yeah, whatever, man. You know what?
I just don't walleye fish that often, so for me, that's pretty. I'm down with that as a
like
PB.
we really walleye fish like when we're super north and we're going for pike or brook trout.
And I want to eat some fish. I will say
I love walleye,
I learned something. This will probably come up in the podcast down the road, but
yeah,
I always suspected that the walleye in the Arctic watershed, which is there's a longitudinal latitude, line where all of a sudden a parallel where all of the
parallel
with the waters will flow north to the Arctic and stop flowing south to the Great Lakes, and then of course to the Atlantic Ocean. But I always suspected that Arctic watershed walleye tasted better, and I thought that was just like psychosomatic, like it was all in my head. It was all like
right, because it's cold in north and stuff.
But our guide Matt on the first day at Old Post was saying that at that far north, walleye 60%, almost up to 70% of their diet, because he is actually studying walleye at school, in a PhD program, and he was saying their diet is predominantly bugs.
Yeah,
like bug eaters definitely make for tastier flesh.
Which makes sense because if you think about if you're in Ontario or you've ever been to North Bay and you've seen what they call the shad week, where the town is covered in mayflies.
Yeah.
Like it's disgusting. Obviously, like a lot of those bugs end up in Nipissing, and the walleye eat them because it's like an amazing food source.
Right.
You don't think about that, matching the hatch for walleye. I don't think that's exactly how you would do it, but
no,
it is cool that they're eating. When you think about trout food, walleye love it.
Well, also you think of like smaller walleye, like if you're looking at like a all of a sudden like a 7, 8, 10-inch fish is like scarfing a lot of bugs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like larva.
Yeah.
So that's really, really interesting. But yeah, that definitely contributes to the taste. Anyway, the whole point is we've made fish tacos and they're delicious.
Really tasty.
At Brunswick, yeah. I don't know why we haven't had walleye fish
we
tacos
had that
before.
Michael made that steamed walleye at Old Post. That was awesome. Like he brought back his guide cooking skills from when he guided up there and like made us guide fries, which are just like wicked deep fried potatoes, and then steamed walleye, which was really good. And something else. What was the other thing? It was like like corn. We made like a bunch of corn and stuff.
Yeah, the corn was really good.
And that walleye, like we caught it and cooked it like 20 minutes later. It was just man,
so fresh.
You can't beat that. Like it's the best thing ever. It really is one of my favorite fish. Like a really fresh caught walleye. It's crazy. But anyway, really fun going up north. Shout out to them, Brunswick. Shout out to Hearst Air. Shout out to Old Post Lodge.
Melanie.
Sunset Country, the whole shebang.
Yeah, and keep your eyes peeled. Probably sometime October, November.
Yeah, we'll start releasing some stuff from that.
Some stuff for that because, we got to coordinate with our travel partners.
Yeah. What else?
That's it, man. Like, just let's finish the September strong here.
Yeah.
Catch some brown trout. Maybe, I know I'd like to
go fishing.
Me
too, brother.
And then just I'd like to go maybe inspect the drift boat because it's about to shift into its heavy workload season. So make sure everything's okay with the raft and maybe I don't know what, I don't think it needs anything, but maybe just give it a little house you do, a little once over, make sure we're all ready for raft season we never did do that Mississippi float, which I really wish we did.
Next year. It's one of those things where we got to do it and we will. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's our home waters where we grew up. So, do we have any prizes we can give away? Like, go review us on Apple and we'll pick someone and we'll give them. Well,
actually, we do.
Yeah?
Yeah. Islander asked if they could use a photo or two for us, which was so nice. Good Canadian company there. And they sent us these wicked corduroy hats.
There you go.
That have a mayfly on them and say Islander. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can obviously see them.
See it on YouTube. You want to win that hat? Go and give us a review on Apple Podcasts. You got a good shot because we're going to pick somebody. We'll pick 2 people. We'll give 2 hats away.
We have got 2 hats to give.
Review us on Apple. If it ain't 5 stars, you ain't going to win. Oh. Go give us a review and tell your friends, and we'll maybe give you a hat. So yeah, there you go. Well, thank you for listening, everybody. We hope you enjoyed the show, and as always, get out there, catch some fish. Send us send us your thoughts. info@soulfly.ca. That's it for me, Mitch. Aldo.
Bye, everybody.
Take care.
Comb your hair.
Yeah.
Comb it.